Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is April 17, 2022. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything.
Mhm.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Fred Parnes. Fred, where are you calling in from?
Calling from Pico Fairfax district of Los Angeles.
How cool is that? I'm in Venice. So
I know
the
your place well.
thank you, Fred. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you. So what's the best thing for a human being?
The best thing
Yeah.
for a human being in general, for human beings, or for this particular human being?
Yeah, again, you put the questions into the context you want. When I ask you the
Okay,
question,
I gotcha.
you do it in general for you, your family, and every human, or you could say just for you. Either way you want.
Well, the best thing is good health, because without
Good
that,
health.
you don't have anything. And then there's peace of mind, and then there's the love and support of your family, and then there's film, and then there's music, and then
That
there's the
is,
LA Clippers who got eliminated yesterday, so life goes on.
wait, I missed the last part. What was that?
The Clippers, LA Clippers,
Oh,
basketball.
the Clippers got eliminated.
Yeah, we got eliminated yesterday.
So
So,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After music, you might put a six sports.
well, only basketball, but yeah,
Oh, only basketball?
yeah, and I
Oh,
don't do football or baseball.
okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite form of information, Fred? How it comes into you?
Hmm. Well, I'm a visually oriented person. So although I do read, it's not my favorite way to get information. So I don't know if you're talking about artistic information or the world or politics, but generally film. Film is the way I like to is my favorite way of being informed about anything.
Beautiful. So do you think why oh, no, what the question is, why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Well, I can't speak for all humans, but for myself, it's just the excitement of the unknown. I love the unknown. So anytime I can educate myself or be exposed to something new and exciting, it's just it's what life's all about. Just you don't want to stagnate. You want to keep broadening your horizons, keep being exposed to new ideas, and and in the case of film, just always searching for ways people tell stories and the way people assemble their films. It's just an endless fascination. Same with music. Just want to keep bringing it in and just keep filtering it, and the stuff that really resounds with you just becomes part of you, and can become part of your sensibility, or could just take you someplace that that's what the great thing of the arts is. You just take it all in, and the stuff that really moves you just becomes part of you.
Dude, that was great. And we're going to touch on so many of this topics you just brought up. Do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate in humans or more invented by humans?
I think it's probably innate. I mean, I think people have an innate curiosity. That's how we evolved. If we didn't have any curiosity, we'd probably still be sitting around a fire and going out and trying to kill a yak or whatever for dinner. Yeah, it's just part of human nature that, I think, you want to grow. You want to, how can I do that better? How can I understand that better? It's like I have the sundial. I kind of know when it's night and when it's late afternoon. But yeah, it would be really nice if I had a watch. It would be a little more accurate. So whatever it is, you just always trying to find a better way. I think that's an innate part of human nature.
Beautiful. Do thoughts create emotions?
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess sometimes you just have an immediate emotional reaction to something without thinking about it, but usually it kind of comes in, you process it, and it makes you emotion. It gives you an emotion. I mean, obviously, some things you just boom, you see it, and or you're experiencing it, and you have an immediate emotional response. But often it goes through the filter of your intelligence system.
Fred, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
I don't know what I think until I. Huh, I got to think about that for a second. Let me marinate on that one for a second.
no worries. Can humans think without language?
Sure, but I don't think you can articulate what your feeling is towards that unless you have a language to share it, to share it, to verbalize it, to be able to share it with people, and maybe disagree about it, dissect it, whatever. But yeah,
Yeah, Chomsky says a language is not just words. It's a culture, it's a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do, Fred, when language breaks down? When language doesn't work, what do you do?
take a nap.
That is a great answer. That rates up with my friend recently said group hug. Take a nap.
Take a nap, man.
Dude, and you're talking reality. You do literally take naps?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Right
No,
in
I
this seat, right in this seat. You can often find me drifting off for a quick 10-minute power nap.
nap power naps. Those are good. Your observations of humans in general, are humans more thinking beings or more feeling beings? I know it's both and it depends, but just your general hunch.
I would have to, if, I mean, if, I hate to repeat what you just said, but that it's both. But obviously, it's both. But I think people have a tendency to intellectualize things first. So, it's like everybody's very, very analytic and is trying to understand. So I guess it's a mental process, but both leading towards
Both leading towards what?
think, thinking.
Think. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because it's interesting, Fred, because the I don't know what I think until McLuhan said, say it. And Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it down.
well, it's very interesting because in the Peter Case film, which I shared with you, he says, "I don't know what I think about things unless I write a song about it."
That's a great point. I have that in my notes. Yeah.
Yeah, he
So
said it.
now back to Fred. Do you think you know what your answer is now? I don't know what I think until I
Take a nap.
You already said
I don't know what I think. Yeah,
no, that's good because you said take a nap is when communicate when language breaks down. I don't know what I did.
it's always
That's
the answer. That's my default answer. When in doubt, take a nap.
the default answer. That's like, I asked this big hotshot poet in LA all these questions. After every question, he'd go, I don't know. What do you think? Like it was like, come on, dude. And I mean, it worked out, but he was just like, so I'm not trying to put people on the spot, or as like Van Dyke Park says, I gotta see you nail someone else before you nail me. It's like, it's okay to say, I don't know, get back to me, you
Right.
know. Yeah, and like Rebecca Solnit says so well, she goes, just because you ask me a question doesn't mean I have to answer it. You
Exactly.
know, so I'm not trying yeah. So
Yeah, I got
that was good because I will tell you, most people, 90% say people are more feeling beings than thinking. And it's always fun when there's a shift because again, there's no right or wrong answers,
right.
but and it's not if 99.9% of people say one thing, it doesn't mean that that's the right answer.
Right.
You know.
Well, yeah, there is no right answer to that. I mean, because I think every time something comes to you, sometimes you have an emotional reaction, and sometimes you have an intellectual reaction. Sometimes you overthink something, and sometimes you overfeel it. So, you can answer that question both ways.
Well, you'll love the two I reference here. Marx Brothers are in a jam and they go, "Hey, we got to think," and the other one goes, "We already tried that."
Exactly. I love
But
that.
but the Godhead, Captain Beefheart, said, "I had too much to think." Ok okay, here's 2 questions from Alan Turing, 1950s. Is thinking a function of the soul?
Well, I've never really understood really what the soul is, unless it's like some, concept of, some uh, non-tangible part of us which defines who we are or something like that. So it's hard for me. I've always grappled with the concept of the soul. So what is thinking a product of the soul? No, I think it's a product of the brain.
Yeah,
I don't think of my soul. I try to be soulful in my answers, but I don't think I
yeah,
think of my soul. And I
and
like
it's
and I like to listen to soul music while I'm thinking.
right, and it's ironic because soul music is such an essence of who both of us are, but it is interesting when he puts it in another realm, like and most people go that, they'll go, "Well, what do you mean by the soul?" So, the next Turing question is, can machines think?
No,
Very good.
no,
Good certainty there.
no,
Fred,
yeah.
do
Maybe
you
a electric sheep dream or whatever Philip K. Dick said, but no, I think machines not think on their own.
very good. Fred, more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
I gotta tell you, Joe, for some reason you dropped out there. I missed that question.
Yeah. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Hmm, that's interesting. Well, I don't really pursue happiness. I think happiness is just a result of living. So it's not like I don't never think that I'm going out there to pursue being happy. I pursue, maybe you could use the word meaning. I pursue, the things that that engage me, that are interest me, and from that I get a sense of satisfaction. So yeah,
Good.
yeah.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of thought.
Fred, there's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but that one you got right. Bingo.
Tell them what they
So
win, Bob.
what's behind his pants? No, we got to be careful. This is live TV. This is an amazing phenomenon. We're on live TV in
Hey,
the 50s. This could be Elia Kazan with these big clunky TV cameras in New York City with lights. Bingo, we got it made.
faster than light and sound and thought or whatever. Yeah,
Everything.
it's live. It's instantaneous. Okay.
So I was happy your film about Peter Case brought up poetry and had a clip of Robert Frost. And so this poet I like, Audre Lorde, said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools." Another poet, dancer, filmmaker, Yvonne Rainer, said, "You can if you expose the tools." The question is, what new tool do you suggest? But let me just put it in context a little. Just because I open some of these questions with cute quotes doesn't mean you have to apply them to the question.
Okay.
And this question gets a little confusing because when I say, what new tool do you suggest? It doesn't mean it has to be, quote, a new tool. It's more like, what tool do you gravitate towards?
To what end? What tool do I grab?
Well, she's saying to dismantle the master's house, you you have you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. So she's talking, metaphorically dismantling the master's house. But it could be the tools you use in your work as a filmmaker, the tools you use as a father and a family man. And it doesn't have to be a tangible tool, it's sort of a general idea. What tool do you gravitate towards?
Well, just basic humanity. I think everything good sort of comes out of basic humanity and the desire.
That's
Yeah,
that's a great answer. What new toy do you suggest?
new toy. I don't know. For me, yeah, the old toys are the best toys,
Well,
so,
what toy do you gravitate towards?
well, as a person who's very involved with film, that to me the toy is is the camera, it's the editing system, it's the typewriter when you're writing, it's the instruments when you're scoring, it's just all the toys of the trade.
Perfect. Fred, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I don't really worry. I got to somebody asked me something about similar to that when I was doing a podcast with the Peter Case thing. I don't know. I said I go to sleep thinking about I go to sleep thinking about music, and I wake up thinking about film.
Oh, that is cool. So McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the intent of the race. And when I say art, and these are in general terms, meaning film, poetry, painting, the arts.
Yeah.
So artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. So that's like, we don't really know how Zoom has changed our lives or how spoken word or printed word or bulldozers changed our lives. We just sort of embrace these tools and use them practically. But they do shape us, and we're not aware of how they really deeply shape us, shape our behavior. So this was a question McLuhan asked his whole career, and I ask you, why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though artists are broadcasting them to us?
Wow, man, that's above my pay grade. Yeah, I like to think that I'm fairly intelligent, but that's like intellectual. It's like I rarely analyze on that level. So I mean, I can fake an answer to that, but I just have to say, yeah, good question.
Okay, no, that's good. In fact, a big hotshot movie director
Yeah.
used that a great line. He goes, "That's beyond my pay grade." Not to that question, but to another question. I'll tell you about it later. But do artists have moral obligation?
Um, well, I think everybody has a moral obligation,
Yeah,
and I'm always uncomfortable with the word artist anyway. I mean, it just seems to
yeah,
be, I mean, who's an artist? What's art? I mean,
yeah.
what's the difference between artist and a craftsman? What's the difference between, a storyteller and an artist? Or yeah, it's like if you do anything well, you're doing art. So,
Agreed.
that's what kind
Yeah,
of way I feel. I mean, I never have used the a word, in reference to myself. I mean,
yeah,
maybe the artist, like when they say, the record company and the artist, that's not calling yourself an artist in a pretentious way, just saying the artist being the person who creates
yeah.
the commodity that the business is selling. So, but anyway, and what was the question?
Well,
Morality? Does an artist have a responsibility?
no, you answered it well. Do artists have moral obligation? You said everybody does.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That would be my
But
answer.
but
Yeah.
but it's interesting because McLuhan's favorite line was the Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can.
Well,
So, like, you're like the guy who could shine your shoes or the garbage man. That's their art form. If they do it well,
yeah.
you could say theirs, but like two of our heroes, Frank and Bob Dylan, both say, "Well, I'm an entertainer," but they would occasionally fall to the A word. So, throughout our discussion here, if I use it, yeah,
Yeah.
I understand your feeling on it,
Good.
and it's well done because I really hoik up that McLuhan line. The Balinese have no word for art; they do everything as well as they can. It really caps.
Like if you listen to that Balinese gamelan music, they're all doing their part to make that. Have you ever listened to any gamelan music?
Totally. I love it. Yep.
Like a big cooperative, interwoven piece of art. Anyway,
Yeah. Oh,
I
totally.
know it that well. I just when I think
Yeah.
of Bali, and that's all I really think of. It's the only thing I know
Yeah.
from it. Okay.
Fred, are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I'm not afraid of any ideas.
Beautiful. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Um, I could maybe conjure up early memories. I couldn't say the earliest. Like I have my
Oh,
my
one, like one early memory.
Sure, I can conjure up early memory. You want me to conjure up an early memory, or
Yeah, just, just describe it in a couple words, a sentence or something.
One of my earliest memories, honestly, I was born with this. I don't even know why I'm saying this, but it's true because you asked me a question. I was born like with a club foot. I had like one foot that went like this, one foot went like that, and I had to have it like broken and reset. And like my oldest memory is of that experience when I was just like a toddler. I can
Right.
distinctly remember, even though it's all just deeply buried in some recess of my mind. But I that's my first real memory is remembering that I had to like go through this weird thing. Yeah.
Wow. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Oh, I'd say it's a blessing.
Yeah. Can you tell me
I can't
some
really remember.
well, James Joyce said, "Remember to forget." um, Fred, tell me someone within your immediate family and then outside your immediate family who had an impact on you, just briefly, like a role model. What specifically did you get from them?
Well, my older brother, who's an oncologist, which is sort of like the opposite part of the world that I'm on. That his is all about uh, healing and studying and trying to solve these problems, these life and death problems. And his dedication to that is pretty awe-inspiring. That's an inspiration to me. That's my older brother, Howie.
Howard. And so outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you growing up, and what specifically was that impact? I know there's lots, but just, briefly one.
Growing up, like a friend, somebody, just a person outside of the family.
It could be anybody that you knew or some hero or anybody who had an impact on you.
Right. Well, my earliest heroes were like, it's funny. I went through as far as heroes and role models or people who really made me change my way of thinking. It went kind of from sports to music to film. So, I have sort of heroes in each of those categories. My earliest memories of hero were those early New York Knicks teams with Willis Reed and Walt Frazier. And
Willis Reed, he's one of my heroes.
Willis,
It's so if you named one sports Willis Reed, one music person.
one music person. It could be Bob.
Okay, and then one film person.
There's so many. I always feel anytime somebody says one film,
Okay,
yeah,
but
it's that's like choosing between your kids. I guess it
right,
is
right. Okay, so what do
music,
you think?
film
What do
especially.
you, if you had to summarize, what'd you get from Willis Reed and Bob Dylan? Just in a few words, what did you get from them looking up to them? What did you
Well,
get?
they're almost just images. Famously Willis Reed, who was injured and hobbled onto the court for like the biggest game of the year. Just an image like that. Just going to the old Madison Square Garden with my dad as a kid. He's just looking at these guys. He's just you're a kid. It's just like they were just like gods. These basketball watch them play. And Bob, I don't know, again, my brother was a little older, a few years older than me. So, I got a lot of my first exposure to music would be from him buying stuff. So, yeah, you just think about just the covers of those albums. I was so young, but just to see the cover of those early Dylan albums, I don't know, there's just something about it. You were like, oh, there's something special going on here.
Really cool. Yeah, that's good. Were you raised a particular religion?
No, we were pretty agnostic. We were reform, what they call reform Jewish family, which means that we didn't observe, we didn't like go to synagogue or anything, but it's to me it's more like an ethnicity, like an Irish person's like I'm Irish, or
Right.
when I say Jewish, it has nothing to do with like all the hokum and all the all the kind of ceremony. It's kind of like the Jews didn't have their own play. They were kind of like all over the place. So there's no like Jewland. There's an Ireland, but there's no Jewland. So the Irish person is proud to have originally been from County Cork or whatever. But
That's good. But the question next is, do you pray?
No, not a traditional pray. I don't, not like, oh dear God, please,
Yeah.
No, I don't pray. I mean, yeah, how do you pray to someone if you don't think that anybody exists up there?
Well,
I,
that's funny.
I don't know, dear Jesus or dear Moses or dear Allah or anything like that.
But you anticipated the next question. If God, let's just imagine, if God exists, what would you want God to say to you after you die?
After I die,
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully they pat me on the shoulder and say, "Good job, you did well. You've done good."
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
No, evil people definitely exist.
I
Uh,
love your I love your
well,
certainty.
now more than ever, if you just look at the news and how many evil people are out there, especially in Ukraine and all the horror that's going on over there. That's
Yeah.
just pure evil, pure fucking evil. Sorry for my language.
Don't no worries. Fred, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And this one I'm going to set up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. It's a What's the basic question is how do you, Fred, advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to the Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Well, I think depending on the enemy, I mean, it depends. I mean, there's people who just irk you and who stand for something that you're against, or who might have done you wrong in life or business or that. I think you can ignore them, but some people you have to engage. I mean, uh, on a bigger scale of enemies, of warring enemies. Obviously, it's a different thing. But no, generally, I just try to if someone actually raises to the level of being an enemy of mine, I would just probably just try to keep my distance because life is too short.
I like that. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, a theatrical play is life condensed and stylized and uh, dramatized. I mean, yeah, you can sit around the table with your family, but that's not going to be as interesting as Chekhov if Chekhov is something that that interests you. Some people might say, yeah, I understand the comment. I mean, if somebody says, I'm just as interested listening to the guys on the street corner talk about life than I am going to a theater, then more power to them. They'll save a lot of money. But to take life and filter it through somebody's artistic sensibility or storytelling sensibility, and you can make something that comments on life or makes life more interesting to observe it through a fictional lens.
Yeah.
um, uh, so yeah, I mean, James Joy, that looking at a tree is great. If you have the kind of personality where you say, I don't need artistic stimulation. I can just look at a tree and imagine, then hey, you're gifted. That's great. But for me, I need it, man. I need storytelling. I
Yeah.
love watching the way, especially people from different cultures. I love foreign films, partially just because I think they work on a different level in other countries and than we do here. Although there's great stuff here, but my tastes tend towards European and Asian cinema and stuff. But to see how a director from Turkey, like Nuri Bilge Ceylan, who's one of my favorite directors, how he tells a story compared to, I just saw a couple of great Icelandic films, a couple of films by indigenous Australian directors like Ivan Sen or Warwick Thornton. And, the themes are it's all the same shit. Everybody's dealing with the same issues, but the way their life experience living in Turkey, and that, or being in an Asian culture, or it's just to me that's endlessly fascinating.
Beautiful. Fred, you are well versed in being articulate and good with words, so you really get what I'm after. I really appreciate this. So, what first attracted you to pursue, you didn't pursue, let's say, music as a career per se, but music's a big part of your filmmaking. So, it's sort of like I'm after your tipping points. Where did you say, I want to pursue music as a career? And you say, I want to pursue film making as a career. And, just briefly walk us through, because we met in college in Ann Arbor at the University of Michigan. What were you studying? Because we didn't really have film making. And now they have this film department. It's film
Right,
theory,
right,
filmmaking.
yeah,
And there was just fringy kind of film stuff happening. But I thought we were lucky because we got to study film in college. It's like, wow, go to movies for college.
I know somebody whose son goes to a real Emerson College and majored in comedy.
Who did?
A friend of mine's son,
Right, he majored in comedy.
and that was really that was a major, comedy. And why not? Well,
Why
comedy,
not? That
philosophy, psychology, but all great questions. Well, one thing for sure is that when we were in school, now when I got to Ann Arbor, you were already established there, and I got there, and you were already in the Ann Arbor Film Cooperative, and the worst thing that happened to society, it's the downside of the fact that you can see any film you want streaming on your TV, on your computer right now. That's
yeah,
great because there's so many films that I just, I have queues that are this long with films I want to see. I can
yeah,
I can press this button right now and be watching a silent Ozu film that
right.
you wouldn't even be able to find in 100 years. Now it's all there. But the film societies on campus were literally the greatest thing in the world. We showed
Wow.
a different double feature every day,
Yeah.
350, maybe not the summer we took a couple of weeks off, but for 300 days a year, we showed 600 films a year. And then you had Cinema 2 and you had Cinema Guild, right? I think there was a fourth group too that used to show in the Arts and Architecture building.
Oh, dude, my friends, you're gonna love this. Frank Paul's book is coming out soon, called Ann Arbor Cinema. It's the whole history of, you will freak out, Fred. The first film ever shown in America was a boxing film shot in Vegas, shown in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Wow.
And the students like rioted or something. So, I mean, but a boxing film like that is like, what?
Right.
So, I mean, anyways, but what were you majoring
Okay,
in?
well,
Right?
I went to school a year before I got to Ann Arbor. I went to another school in New York, Rochester University. Big mistake, but there for some reason, see nowadays, like my kid who's a freshman in college, he had to declare a major right away. But when I was going to school, you didn't have to declare until like
Right.
junior. They want you to know, they want to know right away now. You can
Yeah.
change, but they ask it. So I really had no idea what I was doing. I was totally like lost. I mean,
Yeah.
not in a bad way, but I just had no
Yeah.
idea what I wanted to do. I knew that I loved film and I knew that I loved music. So I went to Rochester, and for some reason, to me, what seemed the coolest thing to do was philosophy. And that first
Wow.
year in Rochester, I was taking, especially in the ancient Greek, I was taking Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, all this stuff. And, it's been basically of no use to me, except for the fact that it sort of, instilled a little bit of a feeling of just the pursuit of knowledge and the
Yeah.
expansion of,
Good.
so that was great, even though it really didn't lead me to a place. But once I got to Ann Arbor and I got into the film co-op probably I owe more to the film co-op than the University of Michigan. I mean, the
Yeah.
co-op is everything. Besides all the films that we got to see, and just making the schedules and running the prints and house manager, everything, the posters, it was our life, man. It was
It
like
was so cool.
the greatest thing in the world. I still have some of the one sheets from the old from Ann Arbor.
Good.
Yeah, I've got some of our old schedules too.
They'll help, you could sell them. They'll help pay for your kids' college education.
But sometimes also I go online. You can go back and read old Michigan dailies. Not that you'd want
Oh,
to.
yeah.
I'll go
Cool.
back just to see what films were showing that week, and like between the three film societies, it was like how do you choose, man? I want to see all of those films every day.
Yeah,
It's like, you know, so I mean, remember when the schedules used to come out? You put them up on your wall, and you circle the ones you want to see, and
totally.
that's gone, man. That's just that communal sense of film discovery and film love is gone. It's one of the saddest things, you know. I mean, dude,
But
I'm
what tipped you
so,
over?
yeah,
Fred, that was well said, but what was the tipping point where you go, "I can do
yeah,
this?"
great question. Well, my first impulse was that I wanted to do music, you know, but all my friends were like really good musicians, you know, and you know, so much. I mean, I'm just, you know, a weekend musician at best. You know, I was never going to be, but I tried. I took. Here's a good story. Maybe it's good. I like to tell it. I took a class at the University of Michigan in like score analysis. I
Nice.
forgot the teacher. It wasn't William Bolcom. I took a couple of classes in the music department, and after class one day, the teacher's like, "Hey, come here for a second, man." And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" He's like, "Why are you in this class?" And I said, "I don't know. I just love music so much, man. And when I look at a score, I'm like, it's the most beautiful thing in the world, and I want to understand it better." And he's like, you know, most of the people in this class they're all in the music school and they hate this class. It's like a requirement. And you're taking, you know, and he said, because, you know, your results on this test are like, you know, I'd have to like give you a D, you know, because, you know, you're supposed to like find the cadences and the appoggiaturas and where does it modulate. And you know, I just told him, I said, I don't know. I'm just so awed by it. I just love it, you know. And he gave me a B in the class and he could
Wow.
have given me a D or probably even an F, but you know, it was it was just this desire to get closer to music, you know.
You
Anyway,
Yeah, you've got a drive that's really contagious. It's really great hearing about it. But
no,
you mean scores in general. You didn't mean movie
no, I'm
soundtrack.
talking about just the
You mean
printed score
scores in
to a
general. Yeah,
symphony or to
yeah,
a piano piece or something. I
yeah,
still I still have the textbook. It's like,
yeah.
how did I think I was gonna, you know? I mean, I could sit down. It would take me like a week to play one measure of this, and they, you know, you got people like Rob Conway in the class who are like, I can play this, sight read this, but I just loved it, you know. And the guy, I told you, he gave me a passing grade because
That's
it
beautiful.
was refreshing to him that I was only in the class because I was wanted to get closer to music. Anyway, as I started to realize, dude, you're not going to do anything in music. Just play some music. You have a guitar. You can have some laughs. You got to figure out what you're going to do. And then I found the theater department and I auditioned for a play, The Time of Your Life, the William Saroyan play. And I went in there. I wasn't in the theater department. I just saw it. It was posted. It was the guest artist series. James Whitmore was coming in to play Kit Carson. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try out for that. And I got like the greatest part, Dudley Bostwick in The Time of Your Life. And I never looked back. That was it. So that was just all about performance. And I switched to the theater department, got my degree in theater at University of Michigan, went off and did regional theater, you know, I got some great parts. And then, you know, gradually I realized that I actually wanted to make films. I didn't want to just go to auditions and try to get parts in other people's films. That I really deep down, I had to just believe that I actually had something to say, you know. So the first film I made, which is a documentary on the Persuasions, which I had, a relatively great success with, just in the fact that it got great reviews and I got to go to all these festivals and everything. And then I wrote a script called The Man Is Mostly Water, and I shot that. And just one thing led to another. And it's not like it's been some amazing career, but I've managed to make 6 films since I decided I wanted to make them instead of trying to be a cog in somebody else's film as a performer. And I never look back. And that's all I want to do. All I want to do is die on a film set or in an editing room.
Whoa, that's you know what
That's
you
my
know what
goal in life. Just die
you know what
on the film set or in the editing room.
you know what Kurosawa said? He said, "How do you want to die?" He says, "I want to be on the set and go cut, boom."
Exactly.
That,
Exactly. That's a wrap. How about
that's
that? Even better. That's a wrap.
It's like Colonel Bruce Hampton. So, a screenwriting teacher told me that a great film, and again, it's like film art, the your whole caboodle. Great film is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. A great film is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
I never really thought about intention. I mean, my only intention is to tell the appropriate story that you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
Uh, whether it's a doc or a narrative film, you have your story or your subject, and my intention is to do justice to that story. So if that's intention, that's my intention. So yeah, I'm driven by that intention. That's my goal, to truthfully tell my story the best I can in the most interesting fashion and the most compelling. That's the key word, compelling.
Nice.
There's no logical reason for anybody to sit and stare at a screen in a dark room with people munching popcorn behind them for 2 hours, except for the fact that they're just like stuck on that screen. And there's all different kinds of films that are compelling. There's no one rule, there's no one answer, there's no one. It's just it's either compelling or it's not. You're either looking at your watch or you're dreading that it's going to end.
Fred, two great things with popcorn. Billy Wilder said, I just hope they like my film as much as they like the popcorn. That is a great line from a great filmmaker. I would think you would say he's one of the best.
I love
Like,
it.
okay, then the other one was Frank Beaver, one of my film teachers in Ann
Right.
Arbor. He's
Yeah.
still going. He wrote a book on Oliver Stone. Anyways, he taught us, and he says people will like your film more if they're eating popcorn. He called it the popcorn theory, which is very interesting. So it goes to this question. Marcel Duchamp said, there's no art without an audience. When you're making your film, how much are you thinking of your audience?
Well, I try to be the audience. I try to be the audience. You got, if you please yourself and you have good intentions and you have I think who's the audience? I mean, that's audience is a plural word. It's not one person. You
Yeah.
know, you're hoping to please as many people as possible by pleasing yourself.
Yeah.
I don't think you're ever gonna make a choice that you think this is a crappy choice. This is not good for the film, but it'll help me with the audience. I don't think I've ever done that. I think it's
Well,
hey, man. Hey, my wife just popped into the corner of my eye and talking about popcorn because we were just talking about popcorn. She's from France. She hates people eating popcorn in the movies. Right?
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she hates the
Yeah.
whole popcorn thing. Freaks her out.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Hi.
yeah.
Hi.
Anti-popcorn. Wait,
Yeah.
there you are. She hates
Good to see you.
popcorn.
Hello.
It makes
It's
her.
not that it freaks me out. It's just like I can't have someone like.
Oh,
Yeah.
I understand totally. Yeah.
It's
And
not a
it
nice experience to eat when you go to the movies. You eat
Yeah.
before.
In France, they're eating pate and drinking wine.
Well, I guess now it's
Maybe
starting to be
rabbits.
popular there too.
Frog's legs. I'll have a large buttered frog leg. Okay, thanks for contributing, Isabel.
But it is an interesting phenomenon. I just wanted to bring up Frank Zappa because this is a question I've always pondered. Is Frank goes, I just write music for myself. If other people like it, great. But I think that's over romanticizing in Frank's sort of way the creative process. He grew up in a capitalistic society in a consumer culture. He knew if he hit these notes and said these words, it would enable him to sell his music and then make more. But we know he wasn't always making accessible pop, commercial music. But
Right.
my question is, do you think he was over romanticizing that when he says, I only make music for myself and not other people?
I don't think it's romanticized. It's more. Well, first of all, I think it's true. A lot of people say I make films for myself or I make music for myself. I think most people are full of it, that they really do want. But Frank, I think, probably is one of the few people where I take him at his word. That he really doesn't care. He simply doesn't care what people think of him, which explains a lot of the things that he did. But yet he still ended. I remember I saw him at Cobo Hall years ago with Kurt.
I
And
was there.
at the end of the show, he said, okay, they came out for the encore. And he said, okay, you have a choice. I can play some new amazing stuff that you've never heard before, or the same old crap. And people, yeah, same old crap. And 1, 2, 3, 4, couldn't say where she's going, you know. And we just said, let's beat the crowd and get out of here because I don't need to hear Amarillo Brillo for the 90th time. So he was aware. He was aware that where his bread was buttered, you know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But look, the exigencies of finance are always there. So, you know, you can't do anything if it doesn't get paid for, more in film than anything else, because, you know, even a low budget film still costs, you know, 6 figures, you know. There's no such thing. The whole myth of the $500 film that you shot on your phone. If you're showing it at a festival, if you're projecting it somewhere, you spent some money, you know. So you can write a song for nothing. You can write a poem for even less. But if you're going to make a film, somebody gave you, you know, some money.
Yeah, he also said a great line I love to repeat. I'm a devout capitalist. That's what Frank said.
Very true.
So McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. So you brought up that word humanity earlier. This is what we're talking about right now. It's like knife and fork extend our teeth. Clothing's an extension of our skin. It doesn't have to be tangible. You like philosophy could be an extension of consciousness. So, or the eyelid is an extension of the shutter in a projector or a camera. What does the movie camera extend for you? What humanness?
Well, I think, you know, I guess it's an extension of the filmmaker's imagination. You know, you know, you get an idea. You know, it's usually, you know, a character, and then a situation, and then a storyline, and then a conflict, and you know. But you know, that camera, it's you know, it's just it all begins there. You gotta, you know, just the way you assemble everything within that frame, you know, from the decor, from the wardrobe, from the character, from the blocking, how they enter, where they leave, a moving shot, static shot, in or you're at, you know, those are all just an extension of your desire for storytelling.
Beautiful. And I see 2 guitars there. What does the guitar extend? What humanness? Or 3 guitars?
There's a couple more in the corner too. None of them played that well, but well, you know, same thing, but just, you know, musical idea. You know, it's a little more direct, and it's less collaborative because, you know, you can pick up your instrument and express whatever it is you want to express. You don't need a team, and you don't need a concept. You can just sort of improvise. I don't think that really, you know, that's not exactly the film experience, but you know, same general ballpark.
Let's stay on music for a second there, Fred.
Sure.
What's the function of music?
Well, there's obviously multiple functions. I mean, on one hand, it could be background things that just set an atmosphere. You have people over, maybe you put on some Coltrane ballads, or, you know, or something that doesn't rile you up too much. Or if you go to a disco, you're going to hear that. You know, if you go to a punk thing, it's going to rile you up. And if it's in the function of music, it's going to support of a film. It's going to support your storytelling. So, you know, it's multiple functions.
Copeland said the 4 elements or ingredients of music are melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. So we know what melody, harmony, and rhythm are. How do you, in layperson's term, describe what is tone color?
In terms of music?
Yeah.
Well, you know, Franco has had an interesting quote when he was, I think, in that Life magazine article, saying, you know, if Eric Clapton played the same lines on a Hawaiian guitar, what would it mean the same thing? You know, so, you know, the texture of what you're playing. You know, there's a difference between, you know, an SG being played through a stack of Marshalls, and, you know, a pedal steel guitar and a recorder, or a viola. You know, it's just the tone of an instrument sets a mood. You know, the way a clarinet, that particular sound of a clarinet, or just reeds in general, double reeds. You know, you hear a double reed, doesn't matter what they're playing. You know, you hear a bassoon, and there's there's tonal information right there. You hear an electric guitar played through a stack. That's a tonal statement. So, it's just a texture thing.
I like your word texture. That's good. So another friend of mine says the three tenets of music are pace, technique, and theory. So technique is you can learn how to do it. Theory is you know what's going on. How does one acquire taste in music?
Well, it probably comes differently to a lot of people. I think the more you hear and the more music you're aware of, the more that you've been exposed to, then that's going to obviously affect what you do. The kind of music you grow up on. The music that you hear when you're young. It's just those years from like whatever 8 to like 18. There's something about the music you hear when you're still growing and developing, and your mind is really changing the most it's ever going to change. And that's why I think people have like such nostalgia for the music that moved them when they were teenagers. I'm
No,
sorry.
that was good.
Yeah.
No, that was good. McLuhan also says something about song, because I know you've always been tuned, starting with Bob Dylan, going into Zappa, both the music and the lyrics. The essence is the song in a lot of ways. McLuhan said song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical tastes is ultimately connected to language difference. Any comment?
I'm not exactly sure what that means, but lyrics are very interesting, because I think about this a lot. Sometimes you'll hear a song, and they talk about hooks in music, and whatever the genre is, there are hooks. There are things that you put it on, you want to get to that point in the music. That's the hook. That's the thing that I look forward to in that song. But there are lyrical hooks too. Ooh, there's just, I love hearing those words, and it's so bizarre because I take a lot of the early soul and R&B. A lot of that stuff was church music, and so if you take away the lyrics to whatever you send me, and put the lyric, it probably came from something that Sam Cooke was singing in church. If you change it to God deliver me, it's not gonna move you the same way. Not that You Send Me is a great lyric, but when it becomes something you can relate to, and then when you go to songs where you're like, I love that line, man. You want to hear that line. There's something about the magic of a well thought out line that just where the words sound good together. It's really an amazing thing. And it's really, again, my wife is French, and a lot of the music, and her brother's a music fanatic, and he listens mostly to like American rock and roll music. And it's just like how they don't, their comprehension of the lyrics is sometimes different than the intention of the of the song. They have to filter it through it being their second language, or but
Well, no, it was really well put, because Frank turned us on, a lot of us, to the tuba throat singers, and it puts you in a transcendental state hearing these guys sing, and they eventually revealed their lyrical content is about three things: their boots, their horses, and snow. But we're going to go two different directions here for a second and finish up with music. What's more fundamental, music or language?
well, language. I mean, language comes first. I mean, I think I think language is the first thing.
Okay.
The first way we communicate is mama. It's like the one thing every language has in common. Wherever you are in the world, your mother is going to be some variation of mama. It's like rest, good, love, good, mama.
Boy, you're touching on my next feature film on a lot of things, but we can't go there yet. The other music question is, tell me an instrumental that makes you laugh.
It makes me laugh.
Yeah.
I have to think about that for a second. I'm not really sure that I
Because
know.
it is an irony, isn't it? Because an instrumental, like, technically shouldn't make you laugh, because
Right.
music. So anyways, think about it and you can get back to me. But what you really touched on was what T.S. Eliot said, that poetry can communicate before it's understood. So, you know, again, I was so impressed. I could see Robert Frost in a movie about a you know, a songwriter.
The
All of a
woods are
sudden, seeing
dark and deep.
footage. Say it again.
The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to
Yeah,
go before I sleep. That's what Robert Frost said. That's the
the
excerpt.
clip you
I'm
showed.
not even a huge poetry guy, but Peter was talking about Robert Frost, and I was digging stuff up, and I remembered that poem from the New England Literature program at the University of Michigan. I took a spring semester in New England studying New England writers just for the credits, really. But I really fell in love with that. I thought that was beautiful. And then he mentioned that it was one of his favorite poets, and we just started digging around, and we found that picture of Frost, that little film clip of
Oh, yeah.
Frost reciting the end of that poem. Blew me away.
Well,
Not
see, this is
the Ginsberg poem, which is
the
also
Ginsberg is. I've shown that Ginsberg clip for years because you left out the part where Buckley says you wrote this on LSD, and then he recites it, and Buckley goes, "That's really good," and he's sincere.
Yeah.
He's not bullshitting. He's saying that's good.
I agree. Yeah.
No, and see, this whole thing about poetry can communicate before it's understood is important because your wife's brother was a good example. You like we can listen to a Brazilian song and feel the love and emotion and not know what the words are.
Example, French in general, because I hear a lot of French music just from my wife and her family, and those words are very, very evocative.
Well, the other thing Frost said that I want to interject really quick was they said, "Could you explain this poem?" And he goes, "You mean you want me to say it?" Now, to me, that's the epitome.
Jerry, you totally froze there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll say it again.
He said, and then you froze. So.
Yeah, they said, "Robert Frost, can you explain this poem?" And he says, "Do you mean you want me to say it worse?"
Right.
Which is an amazing thing because my next question is to you, what is the function of poetry? And you just said, well, I'm not really a poetry guy, but just your hunch. Because see, my compliment to you, Fred, is seeing a movie about a songwriter and all of a sudden you're actually seeing Robert Frost is an amazing phenomenon with docs because some kids don't know who Robert Frost is, but they love Peter Case. And then all of a sudden they'll go, wow, like us going, who is Hubert Sumlin or, you know, Johnny Guitar Watson, because Frank mentioned it. They go to the source and they go, well, maybe he'll influence me. So what's the function of poetry?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the function is. I mean, obviously, it's a beautiful form of expression. My daughter's actually a fantastic poet, and she won a poetry slam a couple of years ago, pre-COVID. They have this thing now, slam poetry, where it's almost like it's like a competition. There's teams and
I know about it. Yeah,
and instead of clapping, they snap. So they go back to the old beats, But she did this incredible poem called "Ambidextrous." My mother's love is ambidextrous. She loves me with both hands, and then he totally rips her mother apart. But she's cool. She's cool with it. Fantastic poem, and people went crazy for it. So, but anyway, I digress. Poetry is just one of the most direct, and at the same time, the most direct, and also the most expressionistic form of writing. I mean, you have this like little short poem, and it's like, hey, it's like, just here it is, 12 lines or whatever. And you look at it, you can think about it for, read it so many different ways, and it's open to so much interpretation. It's poetic, if you will. It's beautiful. I mean, I'm certainly no expert. I mean, my favorite poets are my daughter and Edgar Allan Poe.
Nice. Well, they asked Dylan, "Are you a poet?" And he says, "No, I'm a trapeze artist." But again, I go to T.S. Eliot, who really spoke articulately about poetry as well as writing it. And he says, poetry is outing your inner dialogue. Fred, what language is your inner dialogue in?
Well, the only language, I speak French very poorly, but my only language is English.
But it's really metaphorically, what form is your inner consciousness in?
I don't think that one's a little above my pay grade. I'm gonna plead pay grade on that one.
That's good. So Michael Apted, I spoke with him 40 years ago. Can you believe
Wow.
this? When MTV was a great filmmaker. I
Did
said,
he
why?
come to Ann Arbor? Did he come to Ann Arbor?
No, nope. It was at Vidiots at
Okay.
a Q&A.
Right.
And I said, why he made a documentary on a Russian rock star then. And I says, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast?
Right.
You know, most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it flourished in the 80s
Right.
with MTV. And Marty Scorsese says, I cut my films faster because of MTV.
Right.
So Michael Apted said, because we've learned to take in information faster. I'm like, yeah, right. I asked this question with a bias. Can humans literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
Yeah, I think probably brainwave is the whole thing with the fast cutting. Is just I hate fast cutting. I mean, there's a time for a fast cut,
Yeah.
but that the way rock videos change the language of music is one of the worst things that ever happened.
That's
It's horrible. It's horrible. And also, and it's not just the commercial video. Even Frank is the worst. His filling is the worst with those super fast cuts. When you don't know what you're doing, you cut fast. And
well, that's that flicker frame editing in 200 Motels, and then in other of his concerts.
everything he did. He always had fast
No,
cuts.
let me tell you, I studied this. He got that probably from Tony Palmer from 200 Motels, because Tony did it in the Cream movie that he made before
Oh,
200
it's horrible.
Motels.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's
Yeah.
horrible. And yeah, I mean, it's like I can't even watch that. It gives me a headache. And you never see the whole group. It's just like always like, and it's just in and out. And it's like,
Right.
oh my God. This music to me, man, it's always just like, let the musician tell the story, man.
Yeah.
Don't try to put your own, hey, look at me, I'm directing or I'm editing, and that's a big failing to me with a lot of music films.
Yeah.
And the fast cutting is just the worst. But
Yeah.
music videos weren't music anyway. That was, and there's some of them are great, some of them are funny or whatever. But that was a terrible technique, and
Yeah.
it was really regrettable. But
Okay, the hidden question there, Fred, really is it literally possible for humans to multitask?
to multitask, sure.
Yeah.
Multitasking right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm writing a screenplay right now. I'm not even listening. Yeah, you have to multitask.
Okay. What was the motive of the cave artist? Not what Herzog said in his doc or what the New Yorker article he based his doc on says. Just your hunch.
Well, I think there's an innate. I can't speak for the cavemen because I'm older, but I'm not that old. I don't go back to caveman times, but I assume that like almost everybody, there's a certain desire to create something. Look, when when your kid is like 2 and he goes to the bathroom by himself and he's really proud, he says, "Come look what I did." It's like everybody wants to be like, "Hey, look what I did. I
Yeah.
drew a picture of the wildebeest we killed."
That's really well said. And what's more important, Fred, conviction or compromise?
I think they're equally important. I think you got to have conviction and you have to be willing to compromise.
Yeah. You've accomplished a lot in your life. Rate these 3 elements: luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
Luck. What's the middle one? Luck,
skill, and
luck, skill,
ambition.
and ambition. Well, I mean, I think you have to have all 3. I mean, you can have a lot of talent and a lot of ambition, but if you don't get a little bit lucky, you're going to be hanging your pictures in your backyard, because nobody's going to see them. Because you still have to find that person who's going to support it and get it, monetize it, and somebody has to find a way. If you want a lot of people to see it, if that's your goal, if you're happy just to make pictures and hang them in your backyard, which T-Bone Burnett says to Peter Case in the movie, said sometimes you make pictures and you hang them in your backyard. If you're cool with that, if maybe a guy I don't know if Charles Ives cared if people listened, but he was independently wealthy and he composed because he loved composing. I don't know if he would have been just as happy if nobody ever played it, but if you have that desire for it to get out there in the world and for people to see it and to get more opportunity to sell it and make money so you can make another one, then you have to have some luck. But if you have luck, you better have skill, because if you don't have skill, you're not going to have anything to get lucky with. And ambition usually just drives skill, you know. So I would say that those are the three equal branches of government, the co-equal branches of government.
That is really well put. And you brought up two things that's funny is I used to say, is ambition based more on fear or joy? And what would you just say to that, just off the top of your head?
Well, joy for me. I can't. I think a lot of people do things out of fear.
Yeah.
And there's an element of fear. I don't even know. For me, I don't think there's any fear, but I'm
Right.
sure if you thought about it, you know, there's some fear. You know, the fear that
But
you're not getting another chance.
you'll love what, or you might not love it, but this is why I changed it, because I read this interview with William Friedkin, who's actually a very articulate filmmaker. Yeah, he said in Hollywood, skill and luck have nothing to do with it. It's all ambition. So then I says, well, why not change because actually most people would answer, is ambition based more on fear or joy? 80% of people would say fear. So I just changed the question. So the other one was the picture in the backyard is really funny because T-Bone Burnett is sort of like what we call failed McLuhanite. He really loves Marshall McLuhan, but he doesn't really get him, but he's a great guy and all the power to him. Just the fact that he spews McLuhan's name out, I'm like, hey, a half a truth is still a lot of truth, dude. But I wonder if he got that picture in the backyard from, it's either Cezanne or Matisse said, if you paint your painting and put it in the bushes and it blends in, it's a good painting. That's like, just go put your paintings in the backyard. If they blend in, hey, they're good. Okay, I'm going to leave them there. So George Manupelli, hero of mine, started the Ann Arbor Film Festival 60 years ago. You know, cinema's only 130 years. He's had a festival for 60 years of pretty good. His mantra is ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. So I know it's both and it depends and it's a stupid question, but is art making, filmmaking, whatever, more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever dominant technology or culture is currently present or the environment or surrounding?
No, self-expression all the way.
It's what?
Self-expression all the way.
Self-expression.
Yeah. I disagree with all those.
Right.
Taylor and whoever else he said.
Right. Well,
Cecil Taylor was had a certain thing, and if he feels like that was just whatever God speaking through him, and it wasn't his self-expression, he's entitled to that. But it sounds like a crock to me. I mean,
right. But I'll give you the two examples because I know you're fond of it. Ginger Baker said, "Where'd you get your drum sound?" He says, "I was in London when they were bombing us." So it's like boom, 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 boom. So it was his environment or surrounding. Then James Brown's drummer, raised in Ohio, architect of funk drumming. He says, I lived next to a train track and next to a factory. So it was all like boom, boom, boom.
Right.
So it's like you become a vehicle for your surrounding. And I understand, but the epitome was when the guy can.
No, that's different. Sure, your environment, the sound, it's like the Descadent, the Kurosawa film. That's the sound of the train. The Descadent.
Is it really? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Environment. Sure. You listen to like Mahler. It's like there's so many. It's First Symphony. I don't know if you heard the Mahler at all, but it's almost like a film. It's almost like an early film. Like the marching bands that he heard. That it was a huge part of the kid's life in Bavaria. A marching band is coming through town. So a lot of times you'll hear like just a marching band and all the pastoral sounds. Obviously, as Frank liked to derisively call it, the cuckoo in the meadow. The little flute and little motifs and stuff. But You know, that stuff certainly comes from early experience and early sounds, and that's a great thing about James Brown's drummer. That's great, yeah. And
Wow.
Ginger Baker, let's say his big influence was always African drumming, so he
Yeah.
could say it was the bombing of you know of
Of yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I think he was being a little glib there, but
Yeah.
that's his right.
And the hidden question there was really is can art making be egoless?
I don't know. I mean, it depends what meaning of the word ego. You're talking not egocentrism, but ego just self. Yeah, no. Art, art and ego, two words I have trouble with. But yeah, I don't think you can really create anything you might want to call art or an artistic endeavor without self, without some sense of your own experience, your own point of view, or your own, you know, your own way of communicating. So
I like that because changing the words in my questions is important to me because
yeah.
people just settle. No, they settle for them. And like, all these questions where I go, is this more this or more that? And
Uh,
this woman a month ago, she goes, the word more doesn't function in your question. I said, that's a good comment. Okay, Fred, is perception reality?
Not necessarily. I think usually probably, but you know, sometimes your perception is you know, false.
Yeah,
You know, sometimes there's more than meets the eye, or less than meets the eye, or something different than what you thought you saw. So I'd say sometimes, not always.
Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
I believe my daughter might clean up her room. Um,
That is like
I stay away from the impossible. I mean, you know,
that is
it's hard enough to get like the possible. I'm not even going to
and
the, you know.
there's so many. I mean, I'd love to do a part 2, 3, and 4 with you on this. But who are the roots of your comedy? Who'd you grow up like the 3 main, whether it was people who are professional comedians or someone in your family, or who are the roots of your humor? Because I've always enjoyed it.
Interesting. Well, a lot of just people. I grew, you know, the East Coast Jews are pretty funny. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
noticed, but you know, it's just a big part of Jewish
yeah,
culture is
yeah.
just a lot of laughing. You know, my mom was really funny. You know,
That's
uh,
good.
you know, and I had friends who just were really funny, and we just really like to laugh. You know,
That's good.
and you know, there are comedians that you know, there are so many comedians who are hilarious. I mean, I used to, you know, I mean, you know, obviously the early Woody Allen stand-up stuff, and even guys like you know Alan King. I used to remember we used
Yeah,
to love Alan King. He was so brilliant,
sure.
and Mort Saul, and you know
Oh yeah.
Jackie Mason, and Rodney Dangerfield, and obviously Richard Pryor was like that first Richard Pryor live film might be the greatest film ever made, and there's no filmmaking. There's no
Wow.
filmmaking in it, but you know, there's literally they just set up 3 cameras and said, "Roll them, Richard, you're on." That's why, in a way, it's the greatest film because it's perfect because it's not even a film. You know, it's like he's so brilliant. He's at the top of his game. It's pre self-destructive, is pre self-destructive, and just it's just so brilliant. He was such a
Yeah.
brilliant performer and just such a great mind. And it's just, you know, obviously it's a little tongue in cheek to say it's the greatest film ever made.
No, it's really great.
But it is perfect because, you know, when you make a film, it's like, did you do the best with what you set out to do?
Yeah,
And they set out to show that Richard Pryor is a brilliant mind and a brilliant storyteller and a brilliant comedian. And it succeeds 100%.
yeah,
So very few films set out, you know, do 100% what they set out to do.
yeah. No, I want to do a whole salon with you on Richard Pryor someday. Lots to talk about. Tell me one major element of your creative output, music, film, that's changed since you started, and one major element that stayed the same.
An element of the process of
Well, whatever. Let's just say 6 films. One major element that stayed the same when you first started, and one major element that's changed.
okay, well, one thing that's changed is because I didn't go to any I took film classes, but more like film history and
Right.
film
Theory.
studies, because we didn't really, there was no films at Michigan. There was no, even though it was a big school, there was no. That was before people went to school for filmmaking. It's
Yeah.
but so everything I've learned by watching films, reading about films, or just thinking about films. And the first scene I ever shot is in the Persuasions documentary, Spread the Word, and it's Jerry Lawson and Jimmy Hayes, the lead singer and bass singer from the Persuasions. They're sitting there and they break into Rainy Night in Georgia, the Brooke Benton song.
Yeah.
Away, but and just the two of them singing. And besides the fact that the performance is just unbelievable, the love that these two guys had singing with each other and their brotherhood and everything, it was a perfect scene. And I'll never top that scene. It's the first scene I ever shot. And there's nothing. The camera doesn't do anything. It moves a little bit to the left and right to keep them in frame. But the example is that it just, you don't show it, not showing off, just doing what suits the scene the best. And now maybe sometimes that's a big, complicated steady cam shot. I've never been able to afford a steady cam, but just saying, if you're in a big budget film, maybe you have a big complicated scene with all these moves and extras coming in, maybe that's what. But for that scene, all I had to do was just stay there, keep them in frame, and let them go, make them comfortable and let them go. And I kind of feel like, here 27 years later with the Peter Case film, there's a scene where he sings the song Pelican Bay, and it's just a close up of him. And they just don't do anything. Don't fast cut to something else. Don't cut to his foot tag. Just stay where the story is. And so that stayed the same.
Yeah. Beautiful.
What changed? I don't know. I haven't really made enough films to really say, I used to do that and I don't do that anymore. I mean, I still follow my instincts and try to serve the scene.
Good. That's good. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible.
I'm sorry, Moshe. You mentioned Moshe Feldenkrais. Who now runs Feldenkrais?
Who?
Russell Delman. It was his protege. It was his number one student, and he's now the number one practitioner of Feldenkrais. And he's my cousin.
Wow, so how cool!
Shout out to my cousin Russ. Yeah.
Wow, how cool! So Moshe's major, people would freak out on his name, but if you break your back or hurt your back, eventually you're gonna, anyways, how important the guy is. And Moshe says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Well, it's a good question. I think there's an answer to that. I don't know if I'm coming up with something. I think I've learned to not respond emotionally so quickly, to just try to, just try to stay balanced, to keep balanced. I used to be, I think, much more combustible and much more up and down and much more likely to get fired up about stuff. And now I think, now I can get fired up about the things that are worth getting fired up about and stay calm in face of the stuff that really, at the end of the day, doesn't really matter that much.
Dude, that was beautiful. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
When you use it without letting it overwhelm you.
Yeah.
I don't think it's good to create from a place of anger, but recognizing what you're angry about, if that's the story that you're trying to tell, then that can be very useful. I mean, the Austrian director Michael Haneke, who I think there's a lot of anger in his films, but usually I think he manages to work with that. Sometimes it overwhelms the films, and I think those are the ones that don't work as well. So yeah, that would be my answer.
You create what you resist. So this is a saying. Actually, Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into "You are what you hate." James Joyce said, "Hey, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve." And Bunwell nailed it. Thank God I'm an atheist. So,
Leave it to Goodwill to come up with the best quote.
but there's this idea of, I'm not saying you, Fred, but one creates what one resists. Any reaction to that idea, what you resist persists. You create what you resist. Anything? Any thoughts on that idea?
Personally, no. When I create, and in the relatively few times I've been able to get a film going, it's not something that I'm resisting. It's usually something that I'm very much given over to.
Yeah, you're given over to it. Yeah. Fred, you mentioned this earlier, and I'm curious, how do you find peace of mind?
You know, I don't really seek it. I don't meditate or anything like. I don't do that. I just try to lead a good life and be at peace with my family. Because they're always around, and try to get along. Just try to stay away from personal rancor. It's I have a family member even who's really mired in resentment and victimization and resentment and a lot of holding on to stuff and just like and I see how corrosive that is and how counterproductive it is. I don't think you can really accomplish anything. Letting go. I mean, it's a cliche, but just
Yeah.
letting go of that stuff. Everybody, like Truffaut said, by way of Renoir, everybody has their good reason. You know, everybody has their reason. Even if you totally disagree with them, they've got their reason for what they did, and it doesn't mean that they're right or that they're good or that you shouldn't even disagree with them or engage with them about it. But just try to keep your equilibrium.
Yeah, I'm curious too. We haven't talked about Frank, but just in closing, we just got about 10 more minutes. Can you go a little more than 10 or you got to get going in 10?
Whatever you need.
Huh?
I'm good. I can stay.
Okay, let's that gives me a little more leeway. But I'm just curious in regards to Frank Zappa. How did Frank shape your behavior? I know it's a weird question, but just in general,
Yeah.
well, how do you think
Well,
he
he was a major, a different level. First of all, just Frank was one of the first people who said, in a way, especially in music and especially in rock music, because it was so tied into the times and sort of the breaking away from sort of the Eisenhower years into the Woodstock years,
Yeah.
the sort of, and but he was also like the first person to say, hey, we're oddballs and it's good to be, we're not trying to be like everybody else or whatever that image out there that you're supposed to be aspiring to, we're we're the other people, and just saying, hey, we're the ugliest bands in the world, and it just obviously he was always very tongue in cheek about it and everything, but he kind of was as the British like to say, like to take the piss out of people,
Yeah.
and especially like the scrubbed, cute people who are sort of commodified by the business and put up there as like this is what you should be and this is what you should buy, so there was that social aspect to what he did, which was very interesting. A lot of people was like, hey, this guy really speaks to me, and
Yeah.
then musically, obviously, he was like, I use the notes that other people shy away from, and especially that all that early stuff, it must have been, obviously it was very shocking to people to hear those early records. It was very fearless, and
Beautiful word.
also
Wow.
sometimes and incredibly beautiful music. I mean, the
Yeah.
sensibilities are so. It's a shame because his persona overshadows a lot of what he did. And I say to a lot of people, I can find anybody who likes music, and if they don't know Frank, I can find something that they love from his canon. But you probably can't find almost anybody who would like everything he does, and I don't like everything he does. In fact, as his career, as you get into the '80s and later, there's a lot of stuff that I'm just not happy with, that I don't like, that I find
Yeah.
just boring.
Yeah.
boring and childish and really disappointing.
Yeah.
You know,
But in 60 albums, when you think Bob or, Leonard Cohen or Neil Young or any of his peers did 30 albums in 30 years, he did
sure.
60.
Right.
And so you can, out of those 60, get a few that really touch you. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, look, nobody can match his output, obviously, but he was a composer, so it never ended for him. A guy like, I mean, you mentioned like kind of singer songwriter kind of guys. There really are only so many songs. I mean, how many? With Frank, he worked in so many different genres, and with huge ensembles, and the variations are endless. He could have constantly been putting stuff out. I just found that, personally for me, later in his career, he was
Yeah.
never a lazy person. Nobody can say that. He's probably the hardest
Yeah.
working person ever.
No, I
But just
understand.
creatively, I found a lot of stuff very lazy, lyrically very lazy, and
Yeah.
So I I lose the thread with him a little bit later, but he's certainly one of the most important people to me musically of all
Yeah.
time. Top five
That's
all
beautiful.
time, no
That's
question.
beautiful. It's like when I asked Mark Mothersbaum from Devo, what do you think of Zappa? He goes, all the guys in my band like him, but I think his lyrics are too 70s. I goes, Frank's too everything. Too 70s.
I don't know what 270s means, but
That was
yeah, but the lyrics can be really disappointing sometimes. I mean, sometimes just like, how can somebody so smart,
I know.
want to just be out there with something
But
like
but
that?
the beauty is your word fearless, Fred. That's it. He wanted,
Oh,
whether but it also there's one other thing because we didn't really get into Dylan, but just to think Dylan went over to I made a short film about this that's not released yet, but it's only 3 minutes, and we talk about Tom Wilson, because Tom it produced both Bob and Frank.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bob puts on the back of John Wesley Hardy, Frank is the key. It's just to think that Bob knocks on Frank's door,
Yeah.
introduce me, he's 8 on the piano, and then Frank goes, "Oh, get Giorgio Moroder to lay up the synthesizer track, and you can blow harmonica over it." That is an amazing phenomenon, like, just to think that happened, you know?
But Frank once said, and I don't even remember what he was talking about. He said, somebody was talking about, what people might think, and he said, I simply don't care.
Right.
He
No,
simply,
he cared.
and that's amazing because
I know, but he cared. He just wanted to say that, and it's his way of saying it because it was good. He had a vision. Your word was so well put, fearless.
yeah, well, he was
Yeah.
definitely fearless. There's just so much great stuff there. I have a friend who just knows a lot about music. Really didn't know any Frank, and he said, "Well, play me something." And I played him 20 Small Cigars, and he was like, "Yeah." First of all, just an absolutely stunning melody, and just the idea of combining that guitar through sort of like an envelope follower with a little bit of wah wah and doubled by a harpsichord.
It's
It's so,
Frank invented chamber rock, and by the way, Louis Saul, my friend, who almost worked for Frank, great composer, he studied with Nadia Boulanger, and he played 20 Small Cigars for her, and she goes, "That's very good." And her story. If you don't, she fucking was the teacher of everybody.
wow,
Quincy Jones, Aaron Copland, it's just this amazing list.
right.
Okay, so let's keep going here. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Well, I was very fiery from probably 12 until I had kids. Probably, I would definitely just say, "Whoa, calm down, man. Just slow down. Don't get that's if I have any regret. I don't try not to have any regrets, but if I did, it would just be not to
Yeah.
fly off the handle so much. Back in the day, I was a little hot, a little hot. I ran a little hot.
Fred, which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Under.
Why?
Because I had to choose one. I've done both. I've done both, but under seems right. Because if you want to do a one-handed rip, When it's under, you have like, you can sort of buffet your hand up against it. You can get a rip from the top. If you try to do the one-handed rip, sometimes the whole thing starts unspooling. So definitely under.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I can't answer. I'd have to think about that. So I can't get off the top of my head. Nothing came out. So
That's
I call
good.
it untitled.
One more question. If the publisher wants to scent the glue in the binding of your autobiography, what smell would it be?
Evergreen.
Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something good that I never had, but don't want.
Exactly.
Had. Well, if it's good and I never had it, I probably wanted it. So anything. If I could think of something good and I couldn't get it, I probably wanted it. Well, maybe there are things that I wanted which I couldn't have for some reason, and I was like, okay, that's all right. I can't have that. I don't know. I have to marinate.
No, I'll tell you really quick. The 3 answers I get the most:
Uh-huh.
fame, money, and heroin. Those are the 3. I mean, it's weird that I get those answers. Okay.
Okay.
Just a couple more.
How would somebody know that heroin's good if they didn't do it?
Whatever, because the fucking Lou Reed was on MTV going,
Fame,
"I was a
fame.
junkie, so you shouldn't be." God, I don't know.
Everybody wants money, so whoever said that was lying to you.
No,
Even if you just get it to give it away, everybody
no,
wants
it's
it.
good. You never had it, but you never
Never
want it. Meaning, no, they mean lots of money, like
Yeah,
lots.
money. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So if you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
I gotta say that one's not at the high level of most of your philosophical. That one, I just have to say I'd make a good act of contrition and do
Oh,
my.
I never got that answer. No, I'll tell you the history of that question someday, but that was good, Fred. This guy last week, I said, if you were in a vat of vomit, he goes, stop there. He wouldn't let me even finish the question.
Oh,
But actually, I will explain this. It's a metaphor for life. And a woman answered it once. She said, I would take the bag of shit coming at me and use it to swoop my way out of the vomit. And I says, well, that's Edgar Allan Poe's Descent in the Maelstrom short story. The sailor is going to be swooped down to his death. He watches the pattern of the broken boat parts in the whirlpool, and he uses them to swoop his way out of the death. So that was fun.
That story. I always loved the title though. Descent in the maelstrom. I never even knew that's what it meant. Descending into the maelstrom of the water circle.
Oh, it's the epitome of all of McLuhan's books. All you have to do is read the intro to his first book, and he says, if advertising works, then why don't we use their techniques to educate people? Because they have some weird. All they do is use the techniques of the symbolist poets, which you brought up earlier, Poe. They got all their chops from Edgar Allan Poe, which is basically don't paint the thing itself, paint the effect it produces. Like you create the effect with your art. The effect precedes the cause. So, anyways, it was fun you brought up Poe earlier. I really appreciate that because he's very important.
Jeez.
So we're almost getting there to the end, Fred, and I really appreciate your time. This has been fun. These are 5 quick Alan Watts questions, just off the top of your head. Have fun with them. The first one is, who started it all?
My parents, I guess.
It's good. Are we going to make it?
Doubtful, but hopefully.
Very good. Where do we put it?
Wherever it fits.
Who's cleaning it up?
Probably me.
Is it serious?
Serious, but hopeful.
Really good. The word hope twice. That's like my friend says, hope is for sissies. I like your belief in hope. That's good. It's encouraging.
Yeah.
And and Frank had a great line. He says, "I'm serious about being not serious."
What was the Buñuel line?
Thank
Oh,
God thank God I'm an atheist.
actually, it's better if you say I'm an atheist. Thank God.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
how he really said it.
but
I always yeah,
that's great. I gotta steal that.
yeah. It's a great line.
Steal that and claim it for
But
my own.
Buñuel's great thing was too, they're asking him, "So, you're gonna die soon. Who are you, who's your estate going to? Who are you gonna will all your money to?" He said, "Rockefeller."
Yeah, it sounds very Buñuelian. I
Okay,
remember Rob
so
Conway was a big Buñuel guy. I remember him
oh,
being
yeah.
the Milky Way, his personal pick.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna ask Rob all these questions soon. He is very successful.
Yeah, I looked him up. I think yeah, a little while ago, but I remember I was just sort of free associating on the internet machine.
DIA.
I saw he was playing somewhere. It seemed like he was doing great.
He's the head pianist for Detroit Symphony, and he teaches at Wayne State.
Oh,
No,
that's
he's yeah.
wow.
So Thornton Wilder, one of great playwrights, said, "Art is confession. Art is the secret told, but art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time." Fred, you laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't answered this, but what's it really all about for you?
What's it all about, Alfie?
Yeah.
I wish I knew the rest of the lyrics. I would have just given. I would have just would have recited those. I don't think you ever know what it's all about.
Oh, that is a great answer.
Just day to day, man. It's just day to
Yeah.
day. It's just staying engaged and trying to stay positive and try to just do the best you can. So
But Fred, you're a pessimist. I mean, you're an optimist. You really got a good positive. I grew up with parents. They say, be positive. What's it? Power of positive thinking. Where did you get that from? From the way your parents raised you on your own? Where do you think you got your optimism from?
I'm not sure. I go. I mean, yeah. I guess if I listen to this conversation, I might say, "Oh, I sound pretty positive." There's probably more pessimism in my day to day, life than I've expressed here. There are times where I can be like, "Whoa, this is just, just
Right.
frankly pessimistic." But it's the battle, man. It's the battle that you always have. I mean, it's like even just career wise. I mean, sometimes you can look back. I can look back at what I've accomplished, and sometimes I look at it and go, "Wow, amazing, man! You really got all that done. You were there. You did this, you did that." And then sometimes I look and go, "That's it. That's all you have to show." So it just depends. I try to stay in the frame of mind where it's the former than the latter. Where I can
Yeah.
look back and say, "Hey, you know what? Pat yourself on the back." But sometimes it goes the other way. So
Yeah.
I try to accentuate the positive, eliminate.
There you go. That's a great tune.
To quote a great man and a great father, Bing Crosby.
That is great. But who wrote that? Did he write it? I'm gonna look that up.
No, look it up. What's it called?
Accent. That's a great thing. That's one thing I love about Mr. Google is just knowing the history of every song.
Instant.
My
It,
friend, I'll tell you a good example. My friend goes, "What's Tower of Power's favorite funk song that they don't play and they didn't write?" I goes, "I don't know." He said, "Funky Broadway" by Dyke and the Blazers. I
Taking
goes,
the Blazers, yeah.
I says, "I know the history of funk music. I've never heard of him." I went home. I goes, "Well, I know the song from Wilson Pickett, but I didn't know
Right.
the originators."
Taking the Blazers, yeah.
What
They had
a
a great
name
song. I've got
it
it
is.
in my Apple Music.
Yeah.
Taking-
Okay. Two more, we're out of here. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I see any cultural shift that inspires me. I mean, I mean, not to say that everything, that everything's rotten, but
Right.
I don't see anything shifting to something that makes me go, "Wow, that's great." I mean, everything has changed, film wise. Just the way films are made, the way they're marketed, the way they're bought, the way they're exhibited, and the way they're watched. That's all changed with streaming. It changed everything. So, and there are big pluses from that and big negatives from that. So, um, you know, yeah, I mean, it's got its pluses and minuses, and but I
Yeah.
don't cultural shift. I mean, the culture is just, you want to hear some pessimism? Get me talking about the culture. I mean, the culture is bad. I mean, there's not that many things that you can look at in culture and say, oh man, this makes me hopeful for the future. It's like
Yeah.
well, most things are turning the wrong way politically and culturally in the country. So
Yeah.
hopefully I'll be able to give you a different answer the next time we talk, but don't count on it.
Yeah. Okay, last question, Fred. What gives you the most optimism?
Well, the fact that there are still just great films that are made, from all corners of the world, and you just sometimes you just discover a filmmaker. And that's a great thing about streaming and the way that you can find films that you probably never would have even thought about looking for, from completely faraway places and faraway languages, and but just blow you away. So just the fact that there's still people out there doing great work, and you think about it, there's only so many stories. That's why you find, like, so many stories are like just variations on this theme, like revenge. Seems like every other movie is a revenge movie. Now revenge it's a hot emotion because everybody has a gripe against something, and they want to get revenge for this person did that to me or to somebody. But it just seems to be like every other film out there, and they're just meeting cute, and the best looking people finding each other and falling. It's like man. I mean, but then you'll find some film like Once Upon a Time in Anatolia by Nuri Bilge Ceylan, the Turkish director I mentioned before. It's about this search party driving through the steppes of Turkey looking for the body of the guy, a guy that is a suspect of a murder, and they're trying to find the body. And they stop in this village and have this meal with the muhtar of the village, and the lights go out, and his daughter comes in and brings everybody tea. It's the most amazing scene. The scene where his daughter comes in and brings everybody tea. It's just like a 5-minute scene. If you want to see something amazing, watch the movie Once Upon a Time in Anatolia. It's long. It might not be for everybody, but just skip to like 55 minutes where they stop for this meal and watch like that 10-minute sequence, just the conversation they have, and then the lights go out, and the village elder guy calls his daughter to bring in a lamp and some tea. And I look at a scene like that and I'm like, you know what? Here's this simple scene. It's so brilliant. It blows me away so much. And and there's still people out there who could just knock your socks off with great stuff.
Yeah.
So,
But in closing, Fred, why don't you tell us the name of your new film and talk about it just for a second? I'm
sure.
curious, did you seek it out or did they come to you? But
I
you
started.
know,
I started out.
you
Yeah.
sought it out. What an amazing and I'm curious your take on the doc that won best documentary this year, Summer of Soul. Yeah.
Well, Summer of Soul was very exciting to see that footage. To see young Sly before he went on it took
Yeah.
a sort of a wrong turn in life, and just to see all those amazing performers, so young and vital, and
Yeah.
it just it was sitting in a can somewhere for
50.
50 years. So God bless Amir Questlove, whatever, what's his
Yeah.
last name? Amir.
Yeah. No,
And
Questlove, that's a dumb. Yeah,
Questlove.
he did a good job for a first film, but and I've studied the history of music docs, and you've made two great ones. And I mean, Persuasion's doc, is it available? Can
Yeah,
people,
it's not. It's like
can't you just put it on
one thing that's really changed is that because everybody steals music now and they don't really buy records anymore, that a main source of income for people now is licensing their songs. So you can't really get the kind of back in that I made that movie in '95.
Can't you just put it on YouTube for free?
I have a clip on YouTube for free. There's a clip on there. You can type in
But literally,
"We Are
people,
Not a Doo-Wop Group," and you'll see Jerry and Jimmy sing "Rainy Night in Georgia."
but you mean literally you can't have libraries have it for rent on DVD or any?
I don't know if there's a special license, free license for libraries, but it's got 24 songs and they're well-known songs. And if you really wanted to clear that, if somebody said, "Hey, we're interested in that film, we want to put it out," well, they better have like 50 grand ready to clear the
Wow.
film. Because you got 24, 25 songs, and you're going to pay a couple of grand a song, and that's if you get a good deal. It could be 75, it could be 100 grand. So it's
Does your distributor still own it?
no, it's mine. In fact,
You
my producer on this film just ripped it, ripped it so I can put it on my in my downloads on my computer. I have some DVDs of it that I burned. I have it on my master is like this beta SP master, and it's so old. It's like I'm worried that the oxide's going to fall off. In fact, I took it into a copy place, and the guy said, "You know what? We're better off just making dupes off of your DVD because this is old." So yeah, it's in danger. But I'm glad my friend ripped it to me, so at least I have it on the computer. It's up there in the ether wherever that stuff sleeps.
Yeah. Well, eventually, there's one more place. Put it on archive.org. There's no copyright issue.
Oh, archive, yeah, I know that place.
Archive.org. Just put it up there. Unless you think you're going to make money from it, just put it up there because it should be seen. But then now you make that your first film. It's success. Now you make this film. We're waiting for it to come out. It's not out yet. Is there a trailer on YouTube for it?
Hey, we didn't cut a trailer. A trailer's a promotional device that you use when you have something that people can seek out somewhere. Yeah. So it's not time effective or cost effective at this point to go ahead and make a trailer. It's also really hard to make a good trailer. So you really want to work. So when we have a reason to do that, we'll certainly do it. It would be great. I wish I had one. It would be a great way to like show it to people who are interested. But right now, it's just about monetizing it and finding distribution so it can get out there in the world, and we can recoup some of the investment.
But I sort of hijacked the whole conversation. If you just had to sum it up in like 5 lines, your new film is titled what and what's it about?
Oh, the film's called A Man. Oh, man, I'm jumping back 20 years. It's called A Million Miles Away, and it's about the American musician Peter Case, and about his 40-year life and career. And it's a very human story. I don't even think you really even have to necessarily like that kind of music or his music. It's really more about the measure of success and the nature of success, and at what point, what characterizes success. That's really, to me, the theme of the film. But there's also some great music in it, and some. You saw it all the way through, or did you just see some?
Oh yeah, no, I got
to experience Lady Blackbird.
I really want to talk to you all about it. We could stop the interview and talk about it now, but you're probably burnt out. We could do it another time. But it really got me because I love the clip where he reads Robert Palmer in the New York Times saying he's great. And he's like, geez. And my wife, Susie's the same thing. She got reviewed by Robert Palmer. Right. He said she blew Manhattan Transfer off the stage at Carnegie Hall. And I goes, Fred, I got your next project for you because there's so much great clips of Susie they shot in 16 millimeter. There's a whole history, but it's like, that's a lot of work. I mean, how long did it take you to make this film?
Well, we lost some time because of COVID, so we started before COVID and we just about finished. We were just about finished shooting when COVID, was full blown.
Yeah.
So there was stuff that we couldn't get because people couldn't come anymore. And Jack Lee from the Nerves, that was the last interview that we did. And then, so I had to work in a different way with my editor. Usually I've worked with her on most of my films. Usually I in the room with her, we're watching and spitballing ideas. But this time I really just had her go do her first cut by herself. So it was a different way of working. And then she kicked it back to me and I kicked it back to her. So, so anyway, that cost us, that added like a year. So it's been about 2.5 years of real time.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to it. And Fred, this has truly been enlightening and just a great time to reminisce. We got to be in touch more often. It's really a pleasure. Thank you so much, man.
My pleasure, Jerry. Always fun. Always a good conversation. And yeah, when we get the film out there, we'll do it again and we'll talk more specifically about the film. Maybe show a couple of clips or something.
Super cool.
That'd be great.
Thanks, Fred.
Jerry, cheers.
I'm going to hit the end button, but I hope this never ends.